All right. Welcome everyone to a fresh episode of the Gen AI CIO podcast. Shiva, the founder of Lyzr, where they are building, probably they are doing a lot of interesting work on the agent side. I think they launched their Agent AI studio late last year. And Rishabh this side, founder of goMl, where we are probably solving a very interesting set of use cases, are back almost after a gap of 3 months to start our series of the Gen AI CIO podcast, where we cover everything that what probably the world of Gen AI brings in for you, which is more relevant to the CXOs, CIOs across the world, and how they can start using generative AI as a technology for their business. First of all, wishing our viewers a very happy new year and welcome,
Thanks,
Shiva. Again,
Rishabh.
thanks for joining in
Wish
today.
you, wish everyone a happy new
And
year. Both of us were in build mode, year-end targets and stuff. So now we're back, and we will continue to keep the promise this year, hopefully. So what do we have?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
While that paid off, Shiva, I think we've grown pretty well both on the Lyzr and goMl side, but a story for later. But I think what we'll do, Shiva, is probably we'll start for our viewers, right? I wanted to probably paint one picture, right, before we probably dive deeper into the news side. How was 2024 for the world of Gen AI? While we'll not dive deeper into the analysis, but I think you and I have probably been big proponents, right, when it comes to the large language models. What are the suite and series of large language models that have been applicable and how they've been able to, or the major innovation that needs to happen is at the third layer of this paradigm, right, which is probably building real world applications. I think last year was the year where probably, if not more, we had close to 100 models launched, right, across open source and closed source world, right? But a lot of these models which had shown promise from the launch perspective was still failed miserably, right? What do we mean by failed miserably, right? That is where they did not find a lot of practical application either in the enterprise world, right? Or probably did not even or was not even leveraged by developers on Hugging Face, right? Uh, I'll probably just cover the top five, which at least showed promise, and probably the biggest and the most of it was DBRX from Databricks, right? Which obviously showed a lot of promise, right? I think Databricks spent close to $10 million,
Databricks
right, in
spent
building the model. At
1.3
least that's what they claim.
billion to acquire Mosaic. So this model is
Quite,
nothing but that came from Mosaic.
correct.
So this is, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, this is,
And 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 I remember we had covered probably this in one of our podcasts, right? That Mosaic is such a big story that in less than 1.5 year they got acquired, right? And probably was showing a lot of promise. But I think in the practical world, it has not seen a lot of application where there were only probably close to 23 downloads that actually happened for the model on Hugging Face. And based on my conversation, my discussion, at least we haven't found any application in the enterprise world as well, right? I think second disappointment, Shiva, was with Falcon because Falcon showed a lot of promise, right? Especially probably since it was very Arabic native, model. Initially, I think when it probably got launched towards early last year, right, in the initial set, it showed a lot of promise because it was able to attain a good amount of accuracy for
but
the
it was
Arabic language
already
model
at
and other
that, no,
models
no, no,
that
it
we
was
use,
already a
right?
180 billion
In fact,
model at that time, very heavy model. But that
exactly,
showed the world that, hey, it is
exactly,
not about parameters, it's about tuning. It's not about parameters, it's about inference
absolutely,
tuning or feedback-based tuning. So it showed that, for example, Microsoft's 5.3 or 3.5, it did even better than Falcon's 180 billion model. So the laws of scale started failing from that moment onward.
exactly. Exactly, right. And that's where obviously I think one of the biggest areas that, I and why probably we are covering this in news, right, is that if we really look at these models, right, the parameters, the context window, and probably a big failure or probably from the context window perspective, if I may cover, right, is Jamba, which was the AI 21 model. Right, I think when it was launched, it was probably brought in a lot of promise because it had a 256K context window, but it never picked up. Right, I think overall they were close to less than 10 downloads on Hugging Face as well. Right? So all these parameters, while probably create a lot of noise, but probably do not add to the practicality of the model, right? In fact, I think where Shiva we're now like similar happened with Arctic, right, which is Snowflake's model, right? Where probably it showed a lot of it was a 480 billion parameter model, right? It showed a lot of promise at least at the launch of it. Snowflake even probably integrated it with a lot of offerings that it has today, right? But again, no real world applications, right? So I think all these parameters are very good in terms of creating noise and launching, but the practical applications, if you really look at it, the models like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, right? GPT-4 series, right? GPT-4o series for that matter, right? Have found a lot of practical world application because they are now probably moving to more small or SLMs as we are actually calling it, right? Which are more deployable, practically cost effective, right? Number two, they're very customizable for the customer's use case, right? And that was one of the primary reasons I wanted to probably give an update on this particular news, Shiva, right?
Okay, let's move to the next one. So
All
Microsoft
right. What's next?
launched, but at least going back to the previous one, it's very clear that there are few model companies who will continue to grow faster. I think what OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and Meta. Mistral is also falling behind. Microsoft has their own series called Phi,
Yep.
and I think Amazon has launched Nova. So obviously they want to hold their customers back. Interesting, right? A lot of AWS customers have started asking for Nova actually. So, which is a very interesting scenario. So yeah, it's very clear. Don't set out
And
building new LLMs anymore. Focus on the other layer. Focus on eval. Focus on agentic layer, right? So, or-
yes. I think that's a very good point. Just one last point, shall we move on to the side? I think although Amazon has been very late in probably building their own models, and I think that was a feedback that we had heard from most of our customers, etc. But the moment they've come up with the model, the adoption is really, uh, much better than
correct.
probably a lot of other models that came in earlier. The
And the
primary
price
reason for
point.
that is adaptability. Now, probably a lot of exactly right. A lot of customers have Bedrock, which they've already experimented with, right? Now, Nova probably coming and integrating on Bedrock, right? I think is probably so adaptability and usability is also one area, right? That
Right.
is working out for a lot of these
Okay.
models.
Next up, we have Microsoft, who actually surprisingly has been doing much better. Uh, like Satya Nadella in the recent podcast mentioned that they have the source code of OpenAI, but they also said it means nothing to them. They are rapidly building their own agent. So Microsoft small language model, which is 3.5, now they launched 5.4, which is available on Hugging Face. It's very popular already because it's a small model, 14 billion parameter model, which packs a punch. But now Microsoft is taking the game to the next stage. They've launched large action model. Now the large action model was made popular. There was a buzz last year by this company R1 who Rabbit, I think they created this device with which you could play, and I even gifted one to Rishabh. I don't know if you even opened the packet ever.
I I use it as a paper bird, Shiva.
Crazy, $200 for that. Oh my God. Anyway, they are the first ones to come out and say, hey, you know what, we have a large action model. It can visit your website. It can do multiple things, etc. But interestingly, Anthropic launched computer use, which is also a large action model based thing, but they never used that term. Very interesting for Microsoft to bring it out. And according to them, a larger action model can execute tasks like interacting with Microsoft Office platforms like PowerPoint and Word, etc. So it can do both browser based or UI based, like window based. Like a user interface, how we react to an user interface. So the large action model can react like a human to a user interface. In addition to that, it can also do the large language model stuff, which is the next word predictor. So that's what LAM concept is from Microsoft. We'll have to again see how it changes the behavior. But if it works, unlike Rabbit, if Microsoft make it really work, the Windows machine, as we think about, would be very different moving forward, right? Imagine your future Windows laptop, which you could just speak to, and it'll just there is an the Windows your Windows OS is now an agent, with which just you speak to and it does everything. You don't have to even go to your keyboard or touch your screen. So there is a wild possibility of getting there if LAM really works. So yeah, so that's about Microsoft LAM.
No, I'm super excited because I think Shiva, while you, as you rightly mentioned, right, that R1 did probably bring this concept much better, probably much earlier, but probably they could not put it to the right use. But probably the likes of, Anthropic and Microsoft now probably having access to them building this technology, I'm pretty sure, especially a provider like Microsoft, right, because of the hardware as well as then the software integrations that they can probably build and package and sell together. I'm really, really excited about the
Correct.
possibilities that they can bring.
Now moving on to the next story, again from Microsoft. Uh, they've made it very clear that they're going to spend 80 billion this year to build more data centers. The world is going to get power hungry. When I say power, I'm talking about actual electricity, electricity here, more GPUs to build more LLMs, to improve the LLMs, to serve more customers. The demand is coming from everywhere. I mean, Rishabh and I are seeing that at goML and Lyzr almost every day. The demand is crazy, and even our own personal use of ChatGPT and agents from Lyzr and etc. is very, very high. So no wonder they are investing 80 billion. Yeah, another reason why enterprises should continue to look at these large hyperscalers like Microsoft and AWS when it comes to deploying their AI agents or AI solutions. Because please understand, they Microsoft and AWS and Google cloud platforms, they're also now facing a new threat. There are these AI native cloud platforms that are coming out. Another a good example is CoreWeave. They've raised $1 billion plus. They provide GPU clusters. They out of the box. They provide you storage. They provide you CPU for applications. So they are like an AI native cloud. They are saying, you know what, you should not be running AI solutions or AI powered agents on regular cloud. You need to come to AI native cloud. So they're saying, obviously seeing this competition coming in, new crop of competition. I think NVIDIA
Yep.
through NIMS, they're also looking at launching something similar, which is again an AI native cloud platform. So yeah, no wonder they're investing. Big year, 2020 is going to be the year of adoption.
No, absolutely. I think, as you rightly mentioned, that Shiva, the big threat that's actually coming in from the likes of Nvidia and all, because Nvidia, as we all know, obviously, from the and probably I think the next news that we focus on is the newer offerings that Nvidia has launched on CES. But before moving on to that, right, just one comment that why probably it's very critical for all these providers to now start looking at end-to-end suite because that's what the likes of Nvidia are doing. I'm pretty sure that our viewers would recall that we actually spoke about the models that Nvidia have launched on top of their hardware as well. The moment probably that end-to-end stack integration starts getting adopted, that's where probably the likes of Microsoft and Amazon,
Yeah.
while not immediately, but would start seeing threatened, right? All right. So CES 2025 got kicked, right? The first event of the new year before NRF, right? But while obviously there are multiple, sets of news on the hardware and the, technology that's launched, but the most important one for the Gen AI perspective is
Hmm.
obviously where
They were
NVIDIA has
everywhere. Yeah, they
launched,
were
right?
all over.
Surprise. NVIDIA that's why I said surprise, right? So, Nvidia also probably came up with multiple offerings, but two that I really want to touch on is because it just puts the whole accessibility of these models to an extra to a very new level, right? So one is that they've actually launched something called as Project Digit. Now, what is Project Digit is, and why probably it has a very big potential of winning is that it allows you to run your models of as high as 200 billion parameters, right? Probably with quadrillion calculations, right, on these devices. Now, that's nothing new, right? But the most important piece is that it's available for as less as $3,000, right? For someone to probably get access to this. And these are even smaller. These devices itself, right, where you can actually run and build and run your models are smaller than your Apple mini computers, right? So just imagine probably now someone just paying $3,000, right, having access to this device, carrying it around, building and running these models, right? It will be available, right, hopefully from May of 2025. But something that they've actually probably launched very, very immediately, which will be accessible from 31st January and most awaited as well, is the extension of their Series 40 GPUs, which is now Series 50. So they've launched two GPUs, right? 5090 and 5080 GPUs, right? Which are supposed to be 2x faster than the previous version, right? But obviously will extract or will require a lot of energy to run in. Again, in a very affordable price, $1,000, right, and $2,000 each, right? So good updates from Nvidia. Again, more focused on how they make these models more accessible.
I mean, this
All right.
it's just crazy the kind of breadth that Nvidia wants to go after. They're going after AI data centers. They're going after OpenAI, launching their own models with NIMs. They are now looking at laptop market. They would very soon come to the I would say the mobile devices as well, probably. They might already be looking at edge devices as well. Right? So, oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy the way to think about it. I mean, can they execute? It's a very big question. Can they execute across all these front? Is a very, I mean, hardware is a very hard thing to solve. It's not an easy thing, right? A lot of people tried launching hardware. Amazon launched a Fire phone, didn't move anywhere. So yeah, all the best. Let's see what happens. What next? Yeah.
So I think again, sorry, one last thought on this, Shiva, is that if again I go back to the three-step paradigm, where you've got your hardware layer, which they've already conquered, right? Then you've got your models where they're slowly entering, and then obviously the customization, which probably what goMLs and the Lyzrs of the world do, right? I think they've already conquered the third layer, right? They're leader. They're slowly entering into the second layer. I'm just worried they should not enter into the third layer, otherwise we'll have to pack our bags. All right. Moving to a very interesting update. While again, it's not nothing new that we've spoken about. Google has now probably launched a new team that will focus solely on Gen World models, right? And surprisingly, that team obviously would come under DeepMind, right? But surprisingly, it would be run by a guy called Tim Brooks. And if people remember, Tim Brooks had left OpenAI last year. Right. But what do we mean by Gen World? Right. Very quickly, this is a kind of a computational models, right? That probably are run to understand or to probably simulate how an AI would look at a real world, right? So something similar to what your, robotic or robos probably, right? When they start working or start interacting with the real world, how do they probably simulate the real world? Your, autonomous cars, right? How do they simulate real world and so on and so forth, right? While Google has already probably taken up certain steps, and they had Genie and Genie 2 models, right? In fact, Genie 2, which is the latest in this series that they've launched, allows you to convert or leverage prompts to probably convert it into 3D models automatically, right? But just very interesting way how they're now changing the whole world with this new piece, right? Is so what happens today is that they're converting the whole Genie paradigm into understanding or learning from video data, right? Rather than from a set of images or series of images from the real world, right? Now, how does that work? Is that probably it takes longer videos, right? So something probably, let's say, an autonomous car would probably take or ingest, right, a video of a car being driven on a highway, right? And then it then breaks that into smaller frames, right? Ingests that, and like any other transformer model, starts predicting what would be the next step in that frame, right? So completing the video, right? So that's probably something that they at least claim probably would be the next way for Genie series, right? And that's what they're focusing
I
on
mean, all this
as well.
news is good. When I was looking at this, I just realized that people are still at this phase of looking for basic sandwich. We here this is like talking about a gold wrapped uh, some utopian dish that everyone wants. Like, but no, we are still at an agent level, prompt consumption level because there's still too much fear in order to before even we move on to these models. But at least good to see that they are trying to push the boundary further and show us what is possible.
Exactly. I mean, probably honestly speaking, Shiva, the only thing that actually excites me about this news is the way they're actually training. Because the biggest challenge that has happened with these Gen 1 models is availability of training data, right? So if they can actually leverage real world videos to probably train these models, I think that's
Let's see.
what
Great. And
excites me the most.
they have all the resources, right, with all the
All
YouTube
right,
videos, right? Yeah. They were just sleeping when
exactly, right.
OpenAI scraped all of it.
So
Now
that's what.
they're awake. Okay.
All right. Well, last update here, which is again an interesting update, and most importantly for folks who are more interested in implementing and leveraging. So SAP, if all of us remember, sometime last year had launched something called as an SAP CIO kit, right, which was actually built on SAP's Joule AI Gen AI assistant, right? What does that mean is that as part of this assistant, they had built multiple models very specifically to solve, HR tasks, finance tasks, and so on and so forth, right? Uh, and it makes sense obviously for the SAP because a lot of these ERPs etc. sit on top of SAP, right? So if they can probably build these agents that actually solve these tasks, is it's a big win for their customers as well as for themselves. So what they've now done is they've actually probably launched another utility in it which just focuses on retail and very specifically onto loyalty management, right? Uh, uh, loyalty management and sorry, my bad, as a GenAI assistant specifically for retailers, right? So these are the two features that they've actually included in this GenAI kit. They're planning to probably integrate it with GenAI kit, but they've just launched it separately right now, right? Uh, while they haven't really made it public yet, they just probably made an announcement. This is supposed to go live next month as part of the National Retail Conference, right? But again, see, very interesting update because as part of the CIO kit, right, now you get very, very specific task-based agents on top of the data that's already sitting in SAP, right? While SAP CIO kit has not seen a lot of adoption last year, but at least SAP claims this year that they're going to promote it with more and more of
So
these agents and build an
yeah, I like the
environment for it.
direction with which
So,
SAP is going. Unlike Snowflake and Databricks, who wanted to go after the foundational layer, uh, SAP is looking at an industry play here. Okay, you know what? I'll take over retail, then probably banking, then insurance, and so on. So it's pretty smart play compared to other players. I think ServiceNow is taking a very similar approach as well. I think, and we will see more of this emerging rather than being very horizontal or at a foundational level. They'll focus more on vertical level, right? So yeah, good to see this as well.
yep. I think the most excited that I'm about Shiva this year is that I've seen that change in paradigm with the customer, no, paradigm, the way that the customers are thinking, right? Like while till the mid of last year, we still had customers who said, I want to leverage GenAI to a certain extent, right? They did not have thoughts. I want to leverage GPT, I want to leverage Anthropic, I want to leverage Llama, right? That thought process somehow has shifted and slowly is also shifting. I want to solve a like a use case based conversation. Again, going back to what Andrew NG says, right? Third level, third layer, right? So that's what I'm super excited about, Shiva, looking at solving some of these very complex
Cool.
use cases this year.
So that brings an end to the renewed episode. Starting this is the first one in 2025, and we got this out within the first 10 days, which is fantastic. We'll try and keep up the pace going forward, covering enterprise AI news, very relevant to the CIOs, sticking to the core theme of our channel, which is the Gen AI CIO podcast. Yeah, we'll continue to sift through all the news that comes our way and bring some interesting news to you. Thanks for listening, and we will come back with more updates next week.
Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to the next episode.